Hello and welcome back to No Bullshit. Today we turn to talking about the upcoming DC comic book movie called Birds of Prey. This one is a sort of sequel to the 2016 film Suicide Squad, and it will feature one of its main characters, Harley Quinn, going off on an adventure of their own. But she will hardly be alone in this one though, because Birds of Prey isn't just a cheeky title for this new movie. It's also the name of an all-girl superhero squad, which it's based on. That's right, after the Ghostbusters Lady reboot failed in 2016 and the Ocean's 8 all-girl sequel floundered in 2018 as well, and even the Charlie's Angels woke reboot tanked last year. Well, despite all that, DC and other woke leftists in Hollywood, they still thought an all-girl comedy/action movie was a good idea to try again in 2020. Granted, Birds of Prey is starting off on better footing than most of these flops. It's based on long-running comic book characters and one of their team-up crossover groups. But at the same time, the whispers and rumors we're hearing about this one possibly getting woke too, well, it's making me a wee bit antsy that the film could flop too when it comes out next week. Now, with that said, today we're going to go over the different stories and SJW influences possibly infecting this flick and its cast, showing that maybe Birds of Prey could turn out to be DC's version of Captain Marvel, meaning it's going to be a female-led girl power BS feminist kind of thing that quite possibly and probably will be saying screw you to the men too in the process. And while the lead up to this release certainly hasn't been nearly as close to the levels of controversy Captain Marvel had, but Birds of Prey is getting there, as you'll soon see as we start to go over today's stories. First, we got a tweet and video featuring some members of this film's cast. That's more than a bit worrying to say the least. Here AP Entertainment tweets, "It's about time. Ewan McGregor says he was happy to lend himself to a feminist film that tackled misogyny. He stars as the antagonist in Birds of Prey." Yikes. Not exactly the kind of statement I'm looking for when I want to see a film, especially coming from Ewan McGregor, an actor I've previously enjoyed greatly. Sure, pro-feminism and anti-misogyny sounds good on paper. Who wouldn't go along with supporting women and stopping the hatred of them? But unfortunately, these terms hardly mean the same thing in the present as their older definitions imply. These days, if anything says it's feminist, that usually means it's shitting on men, or at least purposely excluding them for anti-male reasons. As for this film's supposedly tackling misogyny, well, I'd have to ask, where the hell is all this anti-female hatred out there in the world? Because all I see is pro-women stuff and people hating on men. And if there actually was lots of misogyny out in the world, how come these guys never point anything legitimate out? Really, when these kinds of SJWs claim this, they actually just mean someone is doing something a female doesn't like. It could be anything from saying the wrong thing, looking the wrong way, disagreeing with a woman, or in this case, not seeing this Birds of Prey movie. And I'm sure later on when people do start to see this and review it and inevitably critique this heavily, more complaints about misogyny and female hatred will come from these same kinds of SJW people too, because that's the go-to easiest excuse to explain why a female-led film isn't doing well, instead of admitting the script was bad and the acting was subpar, or the fact that this film is antagonistic to what should be its target demographic. But no, SJWs don't accept or admit the real reasons they fail. They deny the truth and instead just call everyone sexist and racist and then go on and repeat their same mistakes time and time again. Next, let's check out the video attached to this horrid tweet and see what the actors have to say directly.
No, it's about time.
Yeah, it's about time. We were both really proud, we talked about it, we were both really proud to be involved in a film that was a feminist film that tackled misogyny, not only in sort of the extreme ends of misogyny, but also the everyday mild misogyny that women have to put up with. And this film's peppered with references to that, so I think we were just proud to be part of that.
Okay, slow down, dude. And I love you, Ewan McGregor, I really do, but you've clearly been misled about this whole misogyny thing, which is hard to hold it against this guy. He's been a famous actor his whole life. He's detached from the real world. But let me give you a clue, E. Just because women have to deal with little inconveniences and problems and setbacks in their lives, that doesn't mean everyone's misogynistic. That's just called being an adult and having issues and obstacles you have to deal with just like the rest of us. Sure, something could be sexist sometimes, but not everything is sexist always, certainly. And I won't buy into this whole if anything bad happens to a woman, it's sexist. It's not. Would these same people say bad things happening to men is sexist against us? Of course not. And that's why misandry isn't even a thing people really talk about. But misogyny is, and it's talked about everywhere because bullshit, low IQ, out of touch celebrities and their champagne socialist Hollywood handlers, they can't shut up about this BS.
And to be the misogynists in the movie, to help flag that up to guys who need to know that that time's done.
Well, that time has already come, my friend. Not saying women never experience sexism ever in current year, but the whole issue is largely overblown. Really, women, mostly feminists, they've reached equality in our country and in most of the Western world, and they've had equality for a good long while now. That's why now, instead of fighting for actual rights, like women's suffrage or the right to vote for women, an older, nobler, actually needed goal that original feminists sought after long ago and achieved 100 years ago, well, instead of going for that or addressing any real actual issues or lack of rights whatsoever, well, modern feminists just whine about shit like the wage gap, a totally made-up problem based on purposely misinterpreting studies to make women look like victims. Other so-called problems modern women have should hardly even be taken seriously either. What else can you even think of that feminists and SJWs are fighting for? More representation in movies and TV? Give me a break. That's not a noble cause at all. That's just you trying to get attention and money. Women want to be richer and more popular just because they're women, and not because of their skill, talent, or appeal to the masses. And keeping in mind female-dominated fields like nursing, makeup, modeling, and adult films, those never seem to be an issue as far as representation. In fact, more women are welcomed and encouraged in every place, because these complaints really aren't about fairness or equality at all. Nor is modern feminism about fighting misogyny or giving girls their time to shine. No, those goals and the ones of this Birds of Prey movie and their cast and what they're demanding, they're all about propping up women and putting them above men and giving them special treatment just because. Next, let's flash back a bit and talk about some other questionable things Ewan McGregor said about this upcoming Birds of Prey release. He said some head-turning things over the past few months. For example, back in October, McGregor spoke to the French website Premiere and explained what he found interesting about his role playing Black Mask, the villain. What interested me with Birds of Prey is that it's a feminist film. It is very finely written. There is in the script a real look on misogyny. Well, not a good look again, but also nothing much new here either as far as substance. I do think it's worth calling out this BS about the script being great though. Ewan claims it was very finely written, but I highly doubt that from what I've heard. Birds of Prey has already admitted to going through a number of intense and vast rewrites and extensive reshoots as well. This means the film didn't turn out quite right the first time, so they had to reconfigure and remake large portions of the project. Doesn't mean that's the end of the world or it will be ruined. Movies often go through reshoots and turn out great, but it's also not the best sign either. And certainly, a really good script and production and schedule wouldn't require this much fixing up. They would have got it right the first time. In addition, from what I've read and heard, Birds of Prey had a really bad ending in the beginning, and part of the core premise was pretty stupid and bad and awful. Not sure how much of these rumors were actually true, but basically, the scuttlebutt was there was supposed to be some part of the plot where the bad guy played by Ewan, well, his whole motivation was originally him trying to get back photographs of his privates. You know, those pics that guys like to text girls. This plot point was the main part of the villain's motivation, and it was supposed to be portraying some kind of pro-male fragility joke premise within it. A premise that obviously didn't land, and that's what required all these reshoots. And this will probably never appear in the final release. But Ewan said the script was great regardless, because I guess that's part of his PR trip. He has to promote this film positively because he's in it. Next, McGregor continues putting his foot in his mouth by saying this: misogynists in movies are often extreme. They beat women. And it is legitimate to represent people like that because they exist and they are obviously the worst. But in the Birds of Prey dialogues, there is always a hint of everyday misogyny, or made-up misogyny, of those things you say as a man you don't even realize. Mansplaining. All it's in the script in a very subtle way. I found that brilliant. If you say so, Ewan. And I know we already went over this made-up everyday misogyny stuff before, but now we're talking about mansplaining too? Come on. I can't believe McGregor really said that term and used it in a serious context, because really, like with this everyday female hatred stuff, mansplaining is largely made up and exaggerated too. They claim it's when a man explains something in a condescending way, which, if true, doesn't even sound that bad to me. It's not a crime or anything either. You're not even taking away someone's rights or freedoms. And to make this matter worse, mansplaining is just usually another excuse women use to attack men they don't like. Basically, if a guy says anything to a woman they don't like, it can be easily dismissed with the mansplaining excuse. Finally, before moving on from this section and talking more about the B-level people in this cast, let's first go over one thing Margot Robbie, the lead actress playing Harley Quinn, said. Here's a quote from this article. Margot Robbie, who plays Harley Quinn and produced the film, also commented about the film's costumes back in June 2019. She described them in an interview with Vogue as less male-gazy. Wow. Just wow. An actress and woman who got super rich and famous, mostly based on her good looks, and now she's got the lady balls to complain about so-called male-gazing? Please. you should be thanking your lucky stars that men want to gaze at you. And also, you should be grateful your acting isn't half bad and it can deliver when your good looks are what get you into the room. And male gaze is just another bullshit term here, used to degrade men, just like how everyday misogyny is and mansplaining. This time though, it is rather ridiculous since an actress in the movie is getting upset about men looking at her, which is exactly what her job entails. And I got to say, I'm not looking forward to a less good looking, less sexy Harley Quinn in this movie. Margot Robbie wearing hot, tight, somewhat revealing clothes is what made her a hit in the last movie. It contrasted well with her intense action. And as I said before, her good looks is a great majority of what got Margot Robbie into all these movies. So her now saying she's going to tone it down, it's definitely not what people are looking for. And also, it's a bad sign and a good indication that this is going the way of Captain Marvel, which was another movie that purposely made its leading lady look less attractive for SJW and feminist reasons. Next, now that we've seen and heard from the white males who are in this film's cast, who are of course the villains because they always are, and we already went over some of the leading ladies quotes too, well now, let's talk about the rest of the cast for a bit to help further this video's point. In addition to having the males willingly emasculate themselves publicly and in the film, as we've seen already in some clips and in this AP interview, well, in addition, the Birds of Prey movie is also overhyping the women and the girl power angle, and also they've made some interesting casting choices that are worth going over, and they're ones that do show in fact that they are in line to be the next Captain Marvel. First, we got a noteworthy amount of diversity amongst the cast, except the villains of course, who are again always white males, but the girls, the heroes, or the actual Birds of Prey, they're all girls of course, being 2 white women, 2 browns, and a younger Asian girl. And while there's nothing wrong with this at face value, and if this were another movie or situation it wouldn't even need to be pointed out, but considering the SJW nature of things here and the already nauseating pro-progressive push around this film, well, you can already tell this diversity was a big part of why this all is happening. And making things because they're diverse and trying to cater to and pander to leftists, well, that never works out so well at the box office. In addition, upon looking further into the characters here more, it looks like most of the casting is actually faithful to the comic books for the most part, except one noticeable and very telling exception. Black Canary was a character that's always been traditionally played by a blonde white girl, but for this endeavor, the woke filmmakers behind it and the ones creating this Birds of Prey movie, they decided to brownwash the character for no good reason other than to get even more SJW here and to be more similar to the Captain Marvel film, which also had a minority washed main character, Nick Fury. Had Birds of Prey cast someone significant for this part, perhaps race bending to make way for a great actor who's perfect for the part otherwise, well, that would be one thing too, and it could have even made this portrayal better, like what happened with Nick Fury, who was played by Samuel L. Jackson in Captain Marvel, but instead here in Birds of Prey, they cast a no-name actress who also, come to find out, is related to one of the biggest SJWs and anti-conservative Trump haters out there today, Jussie Smollett. Jussie, of course, became famous or infamous last year when he got caught lying about being attacked by Trump supporters, a stunt he pulled to try and get pity and attention to be used as a way to get himself more money and more hype for his floundering acting career. And well, Jussie's sister's acting career isn't doing much better either, and in case you were wondering, she's certainly as liberal and biased and troubled as her brother. Just look at this picture of her here. Her name's Journey Smollett, and she's gonna play Black Canary. And yeah, considering Jussie Smollett's woke sister is in the Birds of Prey movie and she's brownwashing a very long-running blonde-haired European-American character, well, that says a lot about this production and its goals and what's really on their minds. And when I say long-running for this character, I really mean it. Although Black Canary might not be the most well-known of comic book characters, she still dates way back, all the way back to the 1940s, first appearing in Flash comics way back then, almost 80 years ago. But in current year 2020, it's more important to be woke, progressive, diverse, and pro-feminist than it is to make faithful, accurate comic book adaptations based on characters and premises that the people like. In the end, it's still a bit early to tell, but the signs are all there. Birds of Prey is certainly looking to be a woke fest, quite possibly on par with last year's Captain Marvel. The similarities are eerie and worrisome, to say the least, and they don't even end with all that we've already talked about today. As this Mary Sue article goes over, people are already slamming the bad reviews of Birds of Prey, saying they're coming from sexist, anti-female bigots like what they would call all of us. And sure, the movie isn't out everywhere yet, but I do think that with this kind of pitch, marketing, and promotion from the cast, it's already a safe bet that it's not going to be good for most people. I know I wouldn't be going to see this in theaters if it wasn't kind of part of my job here, so I doubt many other males and comic book fans are going to shill out the $20 a ticket it costs to go see a movie that will inevitably shit on us directly, and one that the creators even say it's not for you. What do you guys think? Will Birds of Prey be an SJW WCW Woke Fest? Is it going to be this year's version of Captain Marvel? And will Harley Quinn be dressed up like a frumpy plank of wood, like how Captain Marvel came across in her film? Comment your thoughts on everything below, and thanks for watching No Bullshit. Hit that like button to help support this channel, and we'll see y'all next time.